Realize it's been a minute since I made a video, so here's a good one for summertime that not as many people might have seen. If you are in an area, it seems like guys with lakes everywhere, Michigan and such, they seem to know how to do this, but locally a lot of people look at panfish, specifically bluegills and the like, as just something, you know, kids mess with, but whatever. You're actually missing out on some really good fillets. It's good meat. So I'm going to make this quick video on how to fillet these things. This is about the smallest I would keep. Any smaller than, I don't know how to judge my hand versus the next, but this thing's probably 5 inches long, and you kind of judge it on thickness. All you're really going to get till you fillet everything out the way I do it anyways, kind of like that. I end up cutting it out, and I'll show you here in a second, but just take that rib cage right out. And normally I nip those in half either with a knife or however you do it up in the kitchen, and just deep fry them up. But I'm doing this sitting down, so the first thing I do is normally dry these fish off, get some of that slime off, and then I like to go right in here, make sure I get that fin up, and go at a steep angle like that up towards the head. Now you'll feel, yep, right there's the pocket. So that's my opening cut. And then from there, I like this fillet knife here that I've had this for a long time, Buck. It's probably 7-inch blade on this thing. It's a small one, but the important part I like is this point. I'll get it right in there along, not quite the cut, and again we're feeling for that backbone. There we go. Hopefully I'm not hiding too much with my hand, but I want to be on the top side of the backbone, same as if I'm filleting anything else. And I bring it back down through like so, and I sort of stop. The reason for that is, I just said this in some of my other fillet videos, but when you take that fillet off, this whole backbone goes like that, and if you leave it in there, the meat holds it up, so it keeps it in better alignment. So when I'm trying to glide that knife across, it doesn't, I don't have to follow a dip. And the drying the fish off and keeping it on a towel here is great, because the less it slips, the more the blade's getting traction. It's kind of like burning out versus a dry road, like they're trying to open up a NASCAR race. The tires are going to grip versus losing traction. So get that fin up again, go right in there, get that steep angle. We're just going to go down. As always, sharp fillet knife is king. And then on this side, get that point right about there. Feel ourselves on top of the backbone. I like to go through at an angle like this on these fish, and sort of walk my way back. Oh, here's another point. It seems like the second one always wants to grab that fin, so I make sure I'm on the top side of that. You can see that blade goes through. And then now when I get to the back here, I'm going to turn around. This is a little different. This thing's dry enough I can get rid of that towel. I'm going to take it and I'm going to go to the front until I connect that cut and sort of clip my blade up. So what we have is a crappy version of a fillet. Looks like I missed a little bit, but and I take this and just go straight down through like you're filleting anything else. Off at the skin, and I take the knife, go downward at an angle, right, get all the ribs out of there. Whoop. And it's not really the world's biggest piece of meat on a 5 or a 6 inch, but if you're catching a bunch of them, it really adds up if you hold on to it, and I think it's really good. My wife has a good garlic parmesan recipe. Any way you cook fish, but these seem to lend themselves to deep frying, and it's not like if you have a couple kids out, it's anything particularly hard to do by a long shot. Fill a bucket full of them. But the other thing of it is, people always want bigger fish no matter where you're at. I wish it was bigger bass. I wish it was bigger this. The best way to get bigger sunfish is to take them out of your pond, because you're stunting the growth across the board, because they're competing for food and they're being born exponentially. They're the bottom of the pyramid in a lot of, well, pretty much everywhere they exist. Catfish like eating them, bass will eat them, and it's kind of nice. Just have that thing ready to go. Less the meat. Make fish oil with it if you're a trapper. Use it for mink or raccoon bait. But basically, taking some out of it allows you to get bigger sunfish in there, and you got to take a lot of them out. So even this one's a little bit smaller. It's kind of a quantity game. The quality's already there because they're definitely good eating fish, but Most people look at them. I notice there's prestige with certain types of fish. Oh, I'm a bass fisherman. I fish for flatheads. I'm an opportunist. I'll fish for whatever I can cut up and put in my freezer, because at the end of the day, I say variety is the spice of life. So it's one of those things where, would you rather just have the biggest freezer in the world just full of catfish fillets, or would you rather have some options, some perch, some crappie? I'll never understand people that go fishing and don't intend to bring anything back. That's their choice. But point being that I'm in it for the food. Now again, you can see already that this second one I just did definitely doesn't have a lot of meat on it, but we'll take them because they're actually helping out the lake as well as everything else. And there were some big bluegills in there. Not so much in this pile, but it was fishing north of here a ways up towards Cinnamahonic. Now the reason I keep these fillets on is, I can show you here in a second. It's a nice little handle. These aren't super huge, and it's one of those things where last thing you want to do is slip with a fillet knife and chop your hands up. See, like here's one that I don't remember if I did that or what. That's laying there, but same idea. You're getting those nice little strips of meat. Okay, here's one. Now this one, you can see the skin's off, which is how I do a lot of other species, but here's the kick. Normally what I'll do for something to hold on to, catfish fillets are a great example. I take the knife at a 45-degree angle and just cut till it touches the skin. Now, their meat is so soft that half the time this stuff just cuts right off, and you end up losing this much, which on a teeny little fillet ends up being something, whereas the ones that I cut up that way, I'm not losing anything. And it's one of those deals where I want to get everything I can so that I can build my little pile up and have a nice little fish fry, not leave it on the cutting table. Here's another one I'll show you, that 45-degree angle. This one might actually hold, but regardless, you're definitely losing more meat to do that. Don't be dissuaded by what somebody else thinks, because these things are definitely a little bit of a pain. This is the fastest method I found to fillet them out, but I really think they're worth, if nothing else, like I said, add some variety to your wild game selection. And they generally do tend to run on the smaller side in most bodies of water, but every now and again you might get into some real slabs. Maybe not so much with bluegill, but crappie. And it also depends on what part of the country you're in. Up here in Pennsylvania, everybody and their brother's cousin hears the word crappie and they lose their minds and start chasing them. Walleyes are pretty tough to come by unless you want to travel out of the central part of the state. They do come up in the fall, but unfortunately that's when a lot of us are chasing red meat for the freezer. And I like fishing. I like eating fish. I will never trade my deer steaks for fish fillets. You give me the choice of going archery hunting or sitting down along the water, it's not even a judgment call. Do this last one and we'll close this out, just for the point of maybe it'll show something that I missed. Okay. Some guys like to use electric fillet knives. Some guys like to skin catfish specifically. I have yet to make a video for that, but I can get meat off of a catfish quicker than just about anything else that's in the water. They're the perfect fish to get big fat fillets. And it's good eating meat, but there we go again. It keeps everything kind of together too. It's kind of nice. 1, 2, 3, one piece of trash. Now, of course, before I vacuum seal these things, I will take them out and rinse them off, and then I'll pat them dry again. That specifically matters if you have a vacuum sealer. I have a pressure chamber there that I put up in another video, but it's still something I like to keep them halfway, dry in there. That way you don't have a lot of water. But if you have a vacuum sealer machine, you can actually suck fluid up in there to the point that it will ruin the machine, whether it's deer blood or whatever else. It's important that if you're putting it on high, which would normally be your dry setting, that you're going to have that machine not taking on any liquid. So yeah, pretty easy to see where you can get nice little pile. I still have a couple more to do, but it adds up. I mean, you put a stringer load. Most places bag limits are really liberal on bluegills. I think in Pennsylvania, you're allowed 50 a day per person, and it's the same for catfish. So if you really wanted to go hog wild, you could load up, but I really wouldn't go any smaller than this, honestly. You're not going to get enough meat off of it to be worth putting a knife to it, but you kind of got to play it by ear. If you're catching little, throw them back. If your kids are having fun, that might be all it's worth for the day. If you do want to go back and actually have something to cook and they start coming in a little bigger, could be good for. I did notice personally where I was at, the smaller ones tended to be something I'd catch on a bobber, and then I threw down to the bottom and I caught one that completely covered my hand. It was one of the bigger bluegills I've seen around here, so might not work for you, but it's a thought. If you notice smaller ones are towards the surface, definitely throw it at the bottom and see what you get. It might be a catfish. Either way, if you're looking to get some fish, it's never wrong to change things up because they do sit at different levels. So hopefully that was helpful.